Nothing says golf like Sabbath.
No way. This is awesome. Ozzy. To do the Daily Pickle. Maybe this is what they need to play at Yankee Stadium. It's the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell, live from the Travelers Championship. We're on the Travelers radio deck right behind the practice driving range, so I'm trying to keep my voice down. Brought to you by Big Y before somebody hits a golf ball at me.
We haven't got any looks yet, and by the way, these are the guys that either didn't make the cut of the U.S. Open or
so they're low on the totem pole.
Right,
They don't have the gumption to talk some smack.
Yeah.
Now, Vijay Singh, who would get here on Wednesday, would always give me dirty looks because of my voice.
Yeah,
so.
not a fan of the Rob Dibble Show.
Not a fan of me, I think.
Singh or anyone else, but yeah. All right, so Yankees-Red Sox last night did not go well. Yankees-Red Sox this weekend. By the way, John Ashmead had tickets to Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Did you go?
He went, and he got washed out.
That's right. He did. That game was postponed.
But then,
did they give you, like, rain check tickets?
So you got to get there Sunday, but this is Yankees, and it's Sunday, so you can't stay for Game 2, John. You need to bugger off, and they swept them right out of Fenway Park for the next crowd.
As a Red Sox fan, he made his whole weekend the sweep.
I think that would have been an awesome experience as well. Probably partied on Saturday, weren't expecting to rain out, and then you got some early baseball for you on your way home.
I'd like to see a picture of Mr. Big Toe. I mean,
you don't think the big toe's real? You think it's a
listen?
a
I know
toe?
the big toe is real, but how bad is it to where you can't just limp up to the plate, take 4 hacks a game or 4 at bats, and DH? You're that miserably hurt where you can't play. I mean, Alonso's even coming back. He's got like a fractured wrist. He's like, listen, my guys are floundering right now. I can't just stay in the training room and watch this.
No.
And that was the way I felt. You're sitting in the training room or you're sitting on the bench and you're watching your guys struggle. I don't care what they're paying you. He's a competitive guy.
That's the way I was about to bring up here. Alonso yet to get that big-time score like Judge did last year. I'm wondering if this is last year. Is Judge playing? I think he is. Now, I don't know if we're saving the investment as the Yankees organization, if we're saving the investment as the Judge organization, but push is going to come to shove, and you start losing a bunch of games in a row. You know that this guy is significant to your offense. Significant not only when he's at the plate, but everything around him in the world of Yankees baseball.
And don't forget, you dropped a 2 out of 3 at home to the Red Sox. So, really, they've kicked your butt, 6 of the last 7 games you played them?
I'll keep saying this. These division games, whether
They're
it's
huge.
the Red Sox, Orioles, Blue Jays, Rays.
Well, because it knocked them to double figures, so they're 10.5 out. Boston is now 12.5 out. Toronto's 11 out. But like I said in the first segment of the show, this is the worst scoring team in the division. And it's a great division, yes. But now the Yankees are really starting to look like lightweights. You can't call them the Bronx Bombers anymore. And, when I keep seeing it, I don't like to pick on Willie Calhoun or Kiner Falefa or Volpe or any of these guys. But you know what? I grew up watching all-star teams.
Right.
I grew up watching the Reggie Jacksons and the Thurman Munsons and the all of these unbelievable players that they would bring, the Dave Winfields, all of these guys, that they would bring them in, and they would just be studs. And they would be fighting for championships every year. And, somewhere in the heavens, George Steinbrenner's going, you know what? I didn't turn this, over to my kid to have him screw this up for $250 million a year. And watching the Tampa Bay Rays doing it the way they're doing it, with pitching first and then the best offense, they're doing it in timely fashion, fundamental hitting, moving runners along, taking walks when they're given walks. I mean, Kevin Cash, this is why this dude is manager of the year every year, because they need this guy to have that winning mentality throughout the clubhouse. And I'm not knocking Alex Cora, because they really haven't given him a great all-star lineup to throw out there. I mean, Trevor Story's been hurt pretty much since he got here. Adam Duvall, once he's in the lineup, he's a huge bat. But listen, I would have never gotten rid of Hunter Renfroe. That dude's still smoking the ball. And some of those were some bad decisions that I want to know. Was the analytics people that said, nah, this guy's hitting 30 home runs a year, but, we don't want to have that in right field. We want to have a guy that hits 250 a year that's a light-hitting outfielder like Verdugo. I don't get the mentality, because a lot of these guys are just not built for this American League East.
I'm worried about Judge's toe and how serious it is.
Okay,
well,
Sergeant
I
Big
think
Toe.
about Shaq, and Shaq's biggest thing was
Right.
that arthritic big toe. And, like, Judge, I know he's not Shaq.
How many championships did Shaq win? 3, 4?
And on the end of his career, minus the Boston, Cleveland Cavaliers, Phoenix Suns Shaq, I'm talking Miami Heat after that championship Shaq. That guy was barely in any kind of lineup or any kind of shape to play basketball.
All right, let me say this, and I played with Deion Sanders. They're about to cut his foot off.
I know.
He's got 5 championships. He's a football Hall of Famer, and they're going to probably take his foot off because he's had so many problems with his feet. But let me ask you this, and this is a big ask. If you lose your foot, but you still have the life like Deion Sanders, would you say that's okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Aaron Judge, listen, they can't reverse this contract. No matter what happens to this dude's big toe. So I'm saying if this guy's got turf toe, that's one thing. But if this guy now is fine, he's walking, the orthopedics are like, listen, we don't need to do surgery. I worked with John Sally.
Right.
John Sally's 7 feet tall. He grew 6 inches at Georgia Tech. Every toe on his foot in 6 months had pins put in them. Yep. Because when he hit like 40 years old, he couldn't walk properly anymore. Listen, if I have to do that, I'm doing that. But right now, Aaron Judge is in his prime. This team sucks, and you're sitting in the training room. So either you come out and you say we're putting him on the 60-day IL, or you tell me what's really wrong with him.
Well, the good thing about the whole injury was on impact. This is not arthritis. This is not something that some of these bigger athletes that have dealt with.
You ever kicked your bed in the middle of the night?
Oh, yeah. Trust me,
smarts.
It's smarts big time.
Right.
But, for this guy,
I can't believe I can't believe you're the devil's advocate for this guy.
Just because he's different. Like, he really is this team. I think the Yankees are so lucky to have this guy. And if they don't have this guy, not only this year, for the next 3 or 4 years, they're going nowhere. They're going nowhere. All that money is guaranteed. He is a big fella. So I think big toe situations are more crucial for big fellas than they are for the small guys. But he did stub it. It wasn't like
no, he kicked the concrete. You built – listen, I don't agree with it, and – I'm not an engineer,
Dodger Stadium.
Why you would put a curb, because that's basically what it is. It's a concrete curb that filled up the gap between the bottom of those gates that are still there from my playing career and from the 50s to where you say, okay, we're going to make it flush, and it's going to be a concrete thing. So if you either slide or kick it, you could get injured, seriously. And I agree with that because Lenny Dykstra broke his collarbone on our outfield wall. Marge had the cushions and the padding sitting underneath under the grandstands. And so, he nails the wall and he breaks his collarbone.
Something.
So then Marge is like,
maybe we should put those cushions up. Oh, okay, honey.
Anyway, yeah. So the next week we were out of town. We come back. There's padding on those riverfront walls.
Well, I got to think that it was like and I don't know if this happened in a game, but we're trying to keep a ball from going underneath that fence and going out of play. And that, in a Major League Baseball park would be
But it wasn't, though. What they had done is they put padding.
Right.
They made the padding flush with the ground. So even though the fence was up 6 inches and when you open the gate,
wow.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna aesthetically hide that, and so the ball can't get under, and it looks like it's actually a wall. So, yeah, I mean, the Dodgers were smart enough to do that years ago. But there was a lot of stadiums like that. You forget Veterans Stadium, it looked like a hockey rink in right and left field because they had plexiglass that you could see through.
That's cool.
And so we're out there in the bullpen. Their bullpen's in right field, and we're watching the game through the plexiglass thinking, man, if somebody hits that, they're going to break their neck. It's not like, there's no give in that wall. And it was built like a cookie cutter. Veterans, Three Rivers, and Riverfront were all basically, I think, the same guy. And they were like, it took them years to be like, maybe we should put like padding on these walls. Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Did anybody get rocked before they?
Oh, God, all the time. How about, so I'm playing at Wrigley, and Andre Dawson is your right fielder.
Yeah.
And he knocked his head against the brick wall, which basically stunned him, and then the ball hit him in the head.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that because I was right there in the bullpen going, Hawk just got smoked.
Oh, man.
Eric Davis broke his collarbone, fractured ribs hitting that wall. oh, you know what? Maybe behind that ivy we should probably either have some padding or something, because it's a brick wall.
That's tradition.
Who's the brainiac? It's tradition. It's tradition to have Wrigley built like that, like a prison.
Deal with it. All right, let's talk Cardinals baseball. Now, let's start with on the field versus off the field next. But
Cardinals are awful.
They beat the Mets in the last 2 games. They are awful, and it's kind of a head-scratcher. Arenado came through yesterday, 8-7 finish over the New York Mets, who also have nothing to really smile about when you look at their batting averages all the way across the board.
Mets are terrible. They've lost 7 of the last 10. I don't even call it a slide. I just think it's mediocrity in New York, and for $500 million between the two teams, not actually more, because I think the Mets are 310, and the Yankees are probably 350. So we're talking like $550 million for those two eyesores.
But it's still, it's no surprise that McNeil has the best batting average. He's the best hitter.
He won the batting title last year. I expect him to hit 300.
He has great at-bats. He always puts the ball to the bat.
Actually, he's hitting for power, too.
And then you got, Nimmo, who has kind of been the savior at the top
Finding
of that lineup.
Nimmo.
Finding Nimmo with a base hit.
He's finally found it.
He might be hitting 300 in the end of the next week or maybe at the end of the month. Lindor, what up? I mean, that is the biggest
3 years
thing
to figure
that
out.
At that guy.
He is not built for the National League, I guess. I guess he likes
not
curveballs.
Built for the 3 spot in the lineup either. Like
no.
They have to keep on putting this guy in the premier.
But you know what's built for the
lineups.
3 spot? His salary.
Exactly, and
I'm paying him $300 million. I'm going to hit him in the 3-hole. That's a problem.
That's a problem. Now, with Alonso coming back, hopefully things will change where that guy's going to be a force. I think I went 0 for 4 in his first time back against the St. Louis Cardinals. Let that wrist heal up even more, and if this guy keeps putting it over the fence and contending with Judge and Shohei in that little home run race, maybe the rest of the lineup can follow suit and be a little bit dangerous. But they got to win some ball games because the rest of the division will.
Absolutely. And listen, it's a very good division, starting with the Braves. And if you keep watching the Braves long enough, you're like, man, they are littered with young talent that's locked up for the next 5 years.
They do a lot of the little things.
Mm-hmm.
They steal bases. They play great fielding.
We've sprinkled in. And, in fact, Acuna Jr. just did something that hadn't been done in like 70, 80 years, which is, 15 home runs, 30 stolen bases, and hitting 300 for the first 2 months of the season. So, I mean, we already know the guy was great. But when you consistently watch Braves games, you see why. They're built strongly. They've got very good support with the coaching staff, really good, with Snitker, who is a minor league lifer, a career guy. These guys respect him.
Yeah.
And then you're like, you give these guys, they didn't get great contracts. You and I both agree with that. But at the same time, when you're talking about, hey, 120 million, 130 million, 150 million for the next 8 years of your life, if you're a Latin American player, great contracts, life-changing money. You're going to be happy, and all you got to do is play great baseball. I think what the Braves are doing is what the Indians did in the mid-'90s. It's very smart is what I'm trying to say.
The Braves now are 5 up on the Marlins, not the Phillies, not the Mets, the Marlins.
Which is another young, hungry team that's not overpaid.
Not at all overpaid. The Philadelphia Phillies are 8 back from the Braves, and the New York Mets are now 12.5 away from the Atlanta Braves for first place. All right, Cardinals off the field. I heard this weekend, and I found it to be a head-scratcher. You don't see this that often. I don't know if
humility?
I would do this. David Freese was offered to be a Cardinals Hall of Famer. St. Louis Cardinals franchise said, David, we want, your MVP performance in that World Series is enough to make our Hall of Fame for St. Louis. And David Freese respectfully declined. At first I'm thinking, what does he hate the Cardinals for?
No.
Not at all. I read more. Right. He's going to stay with the franchise. He's going to be more of a player-developer kind of guy for St. Louis. So it's nothing about bad animosity with St. Louis. Why, David Freese? He doesn't think he's worthy.
Because he said, my tenure wasn't long enough and prestigious enough. He played 5 years with the Cardinals and Pittsburgh, L.A., then the Angels. So he spent 9 years in the National League, but only 5 with the Pirates. He hit 44 home runs, 237 driven in, hit 286, which is fantastic.
Could be the best on the Mets lineup.
Oh, hell yeah. But he doesn't think that it's worthy enough of the organization, not him. You know,
And you're talking
this
some
is a
good ones,
very
man.
humble young guy. I love David Freese. Won the world championship, and he's just like, listen, you look at Stan Musial, Albert Pujols, guys like that. Ozzie Smith.
Right.
Enos
McGuire,
Slaughter.
Yachty.
McGuire.
I'm
Some of these
talking
guys.
my
Yeah,
guys.
so guys that had
You
like
could
over
keep
10
going.
years in the Cardinals uniform. So he's looking at it from that perspective. That's beautiful for young kids to see this guy. What a role model. I still think he's a Hall of Famer, and he can go with the Cardinals because it's more of you're going like, even with the Reds, the Reds Museum and the Reds Hall of Fame is second only to Cooperstown, but it is awesome.
It is.
They just put another $3 million in it this last year. They have the old Negro League stuff in it. They have the women's that played in the mid-40s or the early 40s when we were at World War, and so they have so much more stuff to offer. That they've gone out and purchased to put in there for you, so you're not just going in there and saying, oh, it's all red stuff. No, it's baseball. So I think the Cardinals, who have amazing fans.
And a history kind of like Cincinnati.
A lot like Cincinnati, more world championships than Cincinnati, but their fan base needs a place to congregate.
Yeah.
And you deserve to be in there. And I've said this about so many guys that, dude, don't undersell yourself. You were a major leaguer. You had a great career. Just to get one game in the major leagues is an accomplishment. There's only roughly over 20,000 guys that have ever done it, and you're one of them. And you have a world championship in a great organization. Let these kids learn your name growing up. Let them, David Freese, he was part of it. I remember Grandpa talking about that. That's the kind of stuff that you want moving forward. So I know he declined. They should put him in anyway.
I think so, too.
Because the Reds vote on it. The Reds, they have a board of directors. They vote on it. They should vote him in and be like, listen, you can either come and stand there and give a speech, but you're still going in the Hall of Fame with a plaque.
I think that everyone has like a guy or two from the franchise that they've always supported that's kind of the unsung hero,
right.
The one that not everybody points to when you're talking the greatest of all time from that franchise. And I think a lot of people, especially during that World Series run, always have a David Freese story to tell or memory that will be valuable for them for a lifetime. I just found that very fascinating because you don't see that often where somebody, like you said, is humble enough to step aside and say, I'm not worthy of that.
Listen, I don't have a whole lot in the Reds Hall of Fame. I mean, I do, but I even have a bar, though, that says last out.
Awesome.
Bar, okay? So it's in the Reds Hall of Fame.
Like a bar?
Yeah, it's a bar.
Like we sell alcohol at this bar?
Well, I think, when you're going through there, they're not giving it to kids and stuff. But, yeah, so it's got a bunch of our stuff.
To kids.
Got a bunch of things in there, and as you're going through all that's where all the championship trophies are, the 5 of them.
And you don't think that you're like the greatest Red of all
time.
No,
and I know I'm not the greatest Red of all time.
Exactly.
And, and if that ever did come, it'd be such an honor, but it's also at the same time it's historical.
Right.
It's historical. When they ask us back and we're speaking to like their foundation, those are the people that keep the Reds Hall of Fame, and donate to it and stuff like that. And I know it's expensive, but they get to sit there and ask us questions and hear stories. That would be what David Freese would be doing. Talking to the masses of Cardinals fans. And I know you're a Cubs fan, but and I respect the crap out of them. I was there in 2004 when they get swept by the Red Sox, and the Red Sox get their first championship in 86 years. I'm in St. Louis. I'm watching all this go down, and they couldn't have been more gracious.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I went to about 3 different places after the game. Mike Shannon's was one of them, which is like that is like the place for Cardinals fans.
Right.
And they were buying them drinks. They were buying them dinner. They're like, hey, congratulations, because they get it. And that's what I'm saying about David Freese. This isn't like, I mean, this is Missouri, dude. This is St. Louis. And I can understand if you want to be that humble about maybe being a Yankee, but just go into the Hall of Fame. You deserve it.
I wanted to bring this up before we got rid of the Daily Pickle. By the way, Red Sox play the Twins starting this series. The Mets are taking on the Astros. Day off for the Yankees today. But the Cincinnati Reds, don't look now, man. Half a game out of first place.
Dude, 8 straight wins. They're on fire.
Who would have thought?
And that's not the greatest. I didn't think.
No way.
But that Dela Cruz, man, came in. And he is unbelievable. He's an igniter.
How much
he's lit a flame under this team.
Right, like a guy comes in nobody knows about. Like, let's see how this guy does, and he's our best player. Now,
right.
It seems like everybody else.
It's electrifying.
I got to get my crap together.
I'll tell you what. When Deion Sanders joined our organization, that's another level athlete.
Right.
When you see, like, it was like Barry Larkin. So I'm in AAA with the Denver Zephyrs. I'm playing this guy. Barry Larkin is there before me when I get called up, and I'm watching him every day going, that's another level of baseball that I can't play. So it motivated me, and I'm in the big leagues the next year. So when you're there and you're one of these other guys that, he may be like the fourth outfielder, or that's going to make you work harder.
Right.
If you're the starters, if you're Jonathan India or any of these other guys that are having really good years, and now you see the future. You see McCain, the kid who just came up as well. You're like, damn, we got some people coming. So it's another gear that you hit, and that's what's happened with their staff, their bullpen, and so I'm psyched for them.
All right, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we don't talk Reds baseball very often. I mean, right?
No, but the kid's 6'5", and he's the fastest kid in the major leagues.
So there's another little wrinkle to the story of the Reds this week. Joey Votto makes his return. How is that going to play? Like, just what you said there with the youngster making everyone else play better. The old man is coming back, who's the highest paid, really the only.
He better have something
paid.
to offer, is what I'm saying. He better bring some 5 years ago Joey Votto to the lineup, or else it'll be short-lived where he's a role player. And he knows it, though. He knows it.
Yeah.
The one thing I respect about Joey is he knows this is the end of his career. The end is closer than the beginning. And, I'm not going to be the guy that disrupts this lineup. I'm going to be the guy that adds to it. And I think that he's gone on radio shows. He's done radio and television. And so he knows exactly what he's trying to do. He wants these guys to get to the postseason because that would be a feather in his cap at the end of his career.
Reds take on the Rockies here starting tonight in a series.
And they're no joke either. They're a tough
They're
out.
coming on. They're a bunch of their young kids, man. It's all these young unpaid baseball players making some noise in the bigs.
All right, more from the Travelers radio deck coming up here. It's the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. We are here on the radio deck all week until Sunday, which is the only week we do 7 straight days because this event warrants it.
Worth it.
Brought to you by Big Y. We'll be right back.